Hi, this is Ralph, and in this video I want to go over designing a web page with style sheets for different media types, specifically screen media types of different widths. So what I mean here is I've got this web page all set up. It's got a few photos of Minneapolis from a recent visit, and I've also got some filler text in there. And this is the page under a normal resolution, about 1024 wide. If the browser is sized down, or if the device is smaller, the CSS will change and the layout of the website will change. If it's on even a smaller device, once again, the layout changes, and I've also dropped some of the text. Basically, I've shortened the descriptions. So this is a small device in portrait, and then we have 1/4 variation, a small device that's in landscape. Once again, different version. So, landscape, small device, portrait, small device, narrow resolution, and a normal resolution. And it's all pretty straightforward stuff. There's just a few new things to learn. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the CSS used to create these layouts, or nothing too dramatic, just changes in colors, use of divs and whatnot. But I do want to point out a couple things, specifically on the web page itself. So here's my HTML file, and I don't have my style sheets in there yet. I'll show you that in just a second. But notice the HTML. Nothing terribly abnormal. Now, something I did do for my paragraphs of text. Noticed a large portion of my paragraph text has been given the class of more info. So basically, this is where I can decide, do I want to show the entire paragraph, or do I just want to show the portion of a paragraph? Okay? So we can certainly take care of that. And I simply have 4 of these. So I've got 4 divs, each with a unique ID. There's an image inside of it with a generic paragraph. The CSS is pretty straightforward. On my normal CSS and my narrow CSS, I'm simply creating layouts that I wanted with different colors and whatnot. On my handheld portrait CSS and my handheld landscape CSS file, this is where I started to do a couple things here that'll be of interest. I started to decrease the size of my font, and here we go. This is the very critical one. So on my handheld portrait, my handheld landscape CSS file, notice that my more info is set to display none. So that hides the large portion of the paragraph text on those devices where I don't want to show as much. So that takes care of that. Now for the real work, it's really just a matter of the link tags that we're going to put into the head section of our page. So in the past, I've got videos for just using an external style sheet or using a print version using the media. Media equals screen, media equals print. But I'm going to go ahead and be a little bit more specific here with what I type. Okay, so here's my first one. Normal link tag, but check this out. It's media equals screen. In fact, this can all be on one line, so it looks a little... There we go. So it's media equals screen, and the min width is 900 pixels. Basically, on any device or any browser where the resolution is 900 pixels wide or wider, it's going to show my Minnesota normal CSS file. Now I'm going to do another link tag here, which will take care of a variation of this. Okay, once again, it's going to be media screen. But this time I'm going to do and parentheses min width, let's say about 500 pixels, and max width of 899 pixels. There we go. So my first link tag will display my normal CSS file for a device that has 900 pixels wide or wider. Certainly you could make a widescreen version also. My narrow CSS is going to kick in once that device goes below 900 down to 899 and as low as 500. It's going to display my narrow format CSS. So there's 2 CSS files loading up. One will display for 900 or wider, the other one if it's 500 to 899. Now with a similar kind of syntax, I'm going to create one for an even smaller resolution in portrait and one for landscape, and this will be ideal for smartphones and other handheld devices. Okay, here we go. Now these latter two link tags They reference my handheld landscape CSS or my handheld portrait CSS. Now, if you recall, my narrow format took care of 500 to 899. So if the width of the display goes below 500 pixels to a max width of 499, and the orientation is landscape, then I'm going to show my landscape handheld CSS. So it has to be screen, has to be a max width of 499, and the orientation has to be landscape. Basically, the width is wider than the height. The alternative is, for my handheld portrait, has to be screen, has to be a max width of 499, but the orientation has to be portrait, meaning the width is narrower or smaller than the height. So screen and max width, and including the orientation. Now notice that I have a comma here, and this is pretty critical. Doing screen, max width, and orientation, that works fine on the browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Opera. Doesn't work on IE yet, but IE 9 will be supported soon. I have a comma, and then I have the similar property, max device width. Max device width will get this working on iPhones and iPod touches. So there you go. I've got multiple CSS files controlling a single web page. From a normal resolution, narrow, handheld and portrait orientation, or handheld and landscape orientation. It works on the browsers, and it'll also work on smartphones and small handheld devices.